Ward moves to amend House File Number 2749, the first engrossment as amended, and the amendment is coded A17.
I recognize the amendment author, the member from Washington, Representative Ward, to introduce your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, you all know what a street face is. Think about when you were in junior high or senior high and walking around and you put on a street face because you wanted to be like everybody else and you didn't want anybody to know that you were different. That's pretty common, and we all actually wear street faces at times. But the student survey gives us a little window into what's really going on in kids' lives. It refers to the interior life and gets beyond the street face. Several years ago, I was involved in a program called Most of Us, and it helped identify kids' patterns of behavior. There would be posters around, and there were all sorts of activities and programs where you could see kids that looked like you and represented your the demographics of your school. And it would say things like, most of us don't smoke cigarettes. Now it would be also saying, most of us don't smoke or use e-cigarettes. Most of us don't engage in this or that activity. Or most of us do participate in this activity. And then below that, there would be the statistics from your school. And it would be, 78, 83%, whatever the numbers were, that said, most of us don't smoke. And it really gave kids good information to make healthy decisions. It also gave them courage and confidence to say, I don't need to do that because not everybody's doing it. And that gave parents a lot of good information as well, saying, everybody's not doing that. So I also want to refer you to my 10 Free Teens bill from a couple of years ago. The information that allowed the American Cancer Society to identify the correlation between tanning beds and young women in particular, but also young men developing skin cancer, came from things like the student data, our data. Our data is used nationally because it really gives us good information into what's going on with kids' lives. It's anonymous. We've talked about a PE bill, and the data for that has come from the Minnesota Student Survey. From the American Cancer Society, their mission delivery and cancer research is largely guided by the Minnesota Student Survey. This data is critical to identifying problematic behaviors among youth, including tobacco use, low physical activity, poor nutrition habits, and tanning device use, and others where we need to have this accurate population-based information. Requiring opt-in requires the risk, runs the risk of skewing the data by significantly reducing the surveyed population. And this means that the student population is no longer accurately represented. Now, one of my school districts is South Washington County. It's the 6th largest school district in the state. And they rely on the student data. 833 appreciates the willingness of students in grades 5, 8, 9, and 11 who participate in the Minnesota Student Survey. The variety of data compiled on state, county, and school district levels provides valuable information, including the behaviors of students and perceptions of their comfort level and safety in the school. The data helps us understand to what extent additional resources may be needed or better targeted to support the overall emotional well-being and educational needs of students. We appreciate the parent choice to opt out for their students' participation in this anonymous survey. Our community joins us as we consistently work to provide additional mental health supports, often based on what is realized through the results of this Minnesota student survey. I encourage a green vote.
The member from Mille Lacs, Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask for a roll call vote on this amendment.
Roll call has been requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this student survey is intrusive. It is using our school children to collect data that is not the business of our public school system or our charter school system. These questions, over 50 of them asked of our 5th graders, and over 100 of them asked of our 8th, 9th, and 11th graders, are questions that are personal in nature and are not for the purveyors who want this information to use to set certain program agendas, etc. So members, this does not bar, this repeal of the student survey does not bar the commissioner from collecting information on mental health or safety, and of course on that which is required in 120B.35, which is data on academic achievement. So members, with that said, I please ask you to vote no and keep this survey out of the hands of our vulnerable children.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Seltzer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Representative Ward, for bringing forward this amendment. I just want to speak briefly about my experience in the Hopkins School District when I served on the Hopkins School Board. Using the Minnesota Student Survey data at the district level, we noted an unacceptable spike in substance abuse among our students. So we engaged parents, we engaged guardians, we engaged community members, and we came up with strategies to intervene and to assist our students in making more positive choices. In the next student survey, we looked at it, and indeed, the student use of illegal substances had markedly decreased. We use that information to let our students know, as Representative Ward said, that most of the other students weren't using these substances, that it was not everyone who was doing it, so that we were able then to continue to create a culture in which our students were making more positive choices, which bode well for themselves and their future. I would just urge people to vote green on Representative Ward's amendment. This amendment has enabled our school district and other communities to make positive differences in students' lives.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise in support of Representative Ward's amendment here, and I share many of the comments that Representative Seltzer just did. As a school board member, we did indeed use this information. It is disaggregated, and it does not identify the students, but it does give lots of wonderful information, not just to school districts. It actually goes through the Department of Public Health, and our public health departments use that information to determine what they should focus on. What are the issues of our young children and our young adults in our school districts and in society? I served on the Olmsted County Public Health Advisory Board for many years as a citizen member, and we used this data and looked forward to it when it was released so that we could see if we were making progress on the initiatives that the Public Health Department had undertaken. And sometimes we had wonderful surprises. The student smoking would drop, and we knew that our efforts were making a difference. And the SHIP program in the state of Minnesota also uses this data to help decide if the efforts that our counties are making work. And members, having served on Health and Human Service for years, I heard from people saying, I want data. Prove to me that the statewide health improvement program is working. And this is one of the best measures for a lot of the data that we're able to use to show you that it works. And I just think we are undercutting the SHIP program, as well as the efforts of our public health departments all across the state. And so I'm very concerned that if we cut this program. And so I'm very supportive of Representative Ward's efforts here, and I really hope you'll join me in supporting her amendment.
The member from Rice, Representative Bly.
Thank you, Speaker. I also would like to rise in support of the amendment. I spent over 20 years as a teacher working with at-risk students in an area learning center, and I can remember time before we had this survey come forward and what that was like, and often it was difficult to get students to talk about issues we were concerned about that they may have been involved in. A lot of times students would say, well, you know, everybody does it. And the survey showed us that actually not everybody did do it. And on the other hand, my experience is that when students were asked these questions and had to deal with those issues, they would seek us out afterwards and look for some help, look for counseling. So it was useful in a number of different ways. And I think it's important that this kind of data is used in this way. And not only that, but we can look at it, school boards can look at it and do some planning. Public health agencies can use it and look at doing some planning. But I think it's very useful, and we found it very helpful in our school for being able to deal with students who were struggling with these kinds of issues, and those who felt maybe it's something that they don't know how to avoid, and they could talk about that as well. So I would urge a green vote on this amendment.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise in support of the amendment. Mr. Speaker, members, I direct statewide training and protocol development outside the legislature combating juvenile sexual exploitation, and I can say that the information from the survey is helpful in informing those efforts and protecting our kids. Chair Erickson referenced that this doesn't block mental health, dealing with concerns about mental health, but there certainly is quite a bit about physical health in here, substance abuse, healthy eating habits, and other things as well. We should not turn our backs on information that can help us to better protect our kids. As I say, I have an understanding of that in my professional work. I think we all understand that in our work as legislators and in serving our communities. I would urge a green vote on this amendment.
Any further discussion? The member from Nicollet, Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, I'd like to suggest that the community at large benefits from this information. The information is reported in our community of Mankato, and it helps us understand our kids. It's a very important vehicle to do that. And then think of the countless agencies beyond public health, beyond the schools, who are working with kids every day, and this information helps them do their job and to do their job well. So I support the amendment.
The member from Washington, Representative Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our vulnerable children are less vulnerable if we have the information on how to help them. And if parents have this information, which they do, and they certainly can, it's a great opportunity, a teaching tool, a conversation tool. It really helps parents talk to kids. It's a vehicle for doing that. And our school boards rely on this information to make good choices. Please vote green.
The member from Wright, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to this amendment, and I would urge members a red vote. The questions that are being asked in the Minnesota Student Survey are very intrusive. And I've had many parents from across Minnesota reach out to me expressing their concern. I just wanted to I'm just going to read a few questions here that are on the Minnesota Student Survey that are being asked of our 9th graders, for example. So real questions: how many times have you been pregnant or gotten someone pregnant? During the last 12 months, how many different male partners have you had sexual intercourse? During the last 12 months, how many different female partners have you had sexual intercourse? During the last 12 months, how many times have you hidden your gambling or betting habits from your parents, other family members, or teachers? During the last 12 months, on how many occasions have you used synthetic drugs such as bath salts, ivory wave, white lightning, or synthetic marijuana, K2 Gold, that you took only to get high? The questions are extremely intrusive, and these are just a select few. And again, when ninth graders, for example, are introduced to such topics like this, potentially without their parents' knowledge, it introduces them and puts seeds in their mind that many parents may not be comfortable with. So members, I would urge a red vote on the Ward amendment. Thank you.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will Representative LaRusso yield to a question, Mr. Speaker?
Lucero?
Lucero. Did I mispronounce your name?
Yield.
My apologies. Representative Lucero. Lucero, Mr. Speaker. My apologies.
He will yield.
Representative Lucero, do you not want to know the number of ninth graders in our state who have gotten pregnant, the number of using drugs, assuming that there is, in fact, a number of ninth graders who've gotten pregnant or have used drugs? Do you not want to have that information available, the aggregate number, so that we can then make decisions based upon that?
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Pinto, as was mentioned earlier regarding this amendment, that information can be found in other ways. The language in the bill that's attempting to be removed is simply going to remove MDE from being involved.
Any further discussion on the Ward amendment? Representative Russo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We just heard that the danger in asking a kid a question is the idea that you'd put ideas in their head, and that it's somehow dangerous for children to find out that sometimes people become pregnant and sometimes people do drugs. And frankly, I can't agree with that, so please vote yes.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Joachim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will Representative Lucero yield for a question?
He will yield. Representative Joachim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Lucero, is the student survey currently mandatory for students to take?
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The survey is not mandatory. There is an opt-out provision, but many parents are not aware of what's happening. They don't know the timeline. They don't necessarily have the information that's communicated to them in a timely manner and in a method by which they are made aware to opt their children out.
Representative Joachim.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, Representative Lucero. I have 3 high school students that have taken this survey, and each and every time I was notified by my district on how to opt out for it. And my colleagues have had some very good comments about why this information gathering is so very important for our cities and for our schools. And I add cities in there because I have an event I'm supposed to go to tonight that the Hennepin County Sheriff has put together to talk to the students, to school districts, in conjunction with the police departments from Hopkins, Minnetonka, Golden Valley, and other western Minnesota suburbs, to talk about the opioid and heroin epidemic facing our kids right now. And information like this is going to help us with that. So completely getting rid of the student survey really isn't a great option. Maybe more a direction towards school districts being more clear about when it's being given and the forms, the opt-out forms being there. Now, my district, maybe it's just exceptional. I'd like to think Hopkins is. But I was told all 3 times when my kids took it how we could opt out. So thank you. I would urge a yes vote.
Representative Halverson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I have to rise because it was inferred on the floor that this survey might be the first time students are introduced to concepts such as teen pregnancy and teen drug use and teen smoking and other health questions that they might ask about physical activity and others. And if that is indeed the concern, which I highly doubt that anybody gets into 9th grade never have been exposed to any of these important, significant social issues. But if that is a concern, perhaps we should collect data and add to the survey and ask students if this is the first time that they've heard about teen pregnancy, teen smoking, and teen drug use. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the Ward amendment. Clerk will close the roll. There being 52 ayes and 79 nays, the motion does not prevail and the amendment is not adopted.